Welcome to Autism ADHD TV with Holly. That's me, a neurodivergent therapist, mom, and passionate advocate for affirming approaches. Maybe you're a parent trying to support your neurodivergent child or teen, a therapist or educator wanting to learn more, or you're a neurodivergent person looking for strategies that truly honor who you are. Whatever brought you here, you're in the right place. We talk about the real stuff: emotional regulation, self-awareness, executive functioning, self-advocacy skills that build confidence, social connections that are authentic, and so much more. And hey, if you're looking for deeper learning, check the description notes below for information on my parent workshops and continuing education trainings for therapists. You're going to love it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a like so you never miss out. And if you find Autism ADHD TV helpful, please share it with someone, because together we can create more understanding about neurodiversity. Now let's get into it. Welcome to the Autism ADHD podcast. I'm thrilled that you joined me today. Before I jump in to today's topic, I wanted to make sure that you knew about the one-page PDF, Get to Know My Child Snapshot. It is that time of the year again where kids are making their way back to school. Teachers are digging into IEPs, 504s. They want to learn more about their students and how they can help support them best. This one-page snapshot, it's got the most important information right there at their fingertips. And I've written all the prompts in there already. All you have to do is type a few sentences and then you're done, and then you can email it off to your child's teacher. I cover a great way to start a relationship with your child is, what their strengths are, covering what might be misinterpreted as bad behavior, but it's actually something else. And I'll give you an example for that section. My child may yell or stomp their feet, but they're actually confused and overwhelmed. At the end, it says some of the best ways to support our child is, and then you can type that into. Maybe that's check-ins. Maybe that's taking a break. Maybe that's breaking down a writing assignment. Whatever that is, you know your child best. Make sure you go down to the show notes so you get that free snapshot. Again, one place, all the awesome information at once. Okay, now we are going to dive in to working memory, what it is, how it shows up every single day, and most importantly, how we can actually help our kids. As always, I am coming to you as both a psychologist who has worked with neurodivergent kids and teens for decades, and as someone who has lived experience. I'm a neurodivergent therapist with low working memory. And I've supported hundreds of families through these challenges, and I know firsthand how hard it can feel when your brain works differently. I wanted to give you just a few examples of this and how it plays out in my life. When someone tells me their name, it's like the name just vanishes into thin air before it even reaches me. I can drive somewhere dozens of times, and I'm not being dramatic here, dozens of times, and still have no idea how to get there or back. If someone tells me a number to remember, it's as if the numbers fell out of their mouth and landed on the ground. Remembering birthdays? Nope. The only birthdays I can remember are my immediate family members. It is so completely frustrating. In school, I could never remember my locker number, no matter how many times I used it. My teachers would give me instructions, or the class instructions. It's as if I didn't even hear them at all. Do you want to know how I knew most of the time when the teacher gave instructions to the class? It's because I saw most of the kids in class doing the same thing. Unless names, numbers, dates, instructions are written down where I can see them, they are completely gone from my brain. And here's the hard part. I was constantly in trouble for it. Teachers thought I wasn't listening. I got accused of cheating when I was actually looking at other kids' papers, just trying to figure out what I was supposed to be doing. Because either I didn't hear the teacher at all, or I did hear it and then I forgot it. This was, of course, a big issue growing up at home too. I was told, Holly, if your head wasn't attached to your body, you would lose it. You're so disorganized. You're lazy. You don't ever listen. Lower working memory is not a character flaw. This isn't about not caring or not wanting to follow instructions. It's not about me not wanting to remember someone's name. This is how working memory differences show up in real life. And that's what so many of our kids are going through right now. I want you to think of working memory like a tiny little desk in your brain. It can only hold a few things at once. You're working on it too at the same time. It's this temporary workspace. Again, working memory is what lets you hold information in mind while you're doing something with it. You have to use it all throughout the day to solve problems, to follow directions, to have conversations, to make decisions. Here are some other examples. Doing math in your head, whether you're at the store or at school, taking notes while someone's talking. So you're having to listen and write at the same time. Having a conversation, remembering what someone just said to you so you can respond. Following directions, go upstairs and brush your teeth. And then you go upstairs in a little while and you see your child is playing with Legos. Working memory is the foundation for a lot of things. Reading a whole paragraph and understanding it, holding the beginning of that paragraph in mind while you're reading to the end. Writing essays, keeping your main idea in mind while you're forming sentences. Again, solving math problems, remembering the steps while you're working with the numbers. Planning, staying organized, juggling multiple tasks, remembering due dates, managing your time. Transitions are hard. Keeping track of what's next while you're finishing what you're doing. Staying calm during unexpected changes or stressful situations. When working memory works well, kids can handle these things. It's not that big of a deal. But when it's limited, every day becomes overwhelming, even when these kids are trying their absolute best. I want to break down the parts of working memory in a way that will make sense. And this is maybe a way you want to explain it to your own child or your student or your client. Understanding what working memory is helps us understand how our kids are struggling and how we can help them. So part of it, we're going to call the boss of your brain. So think of it as the manager of the child's brain. It decides what to pay attention to, what to ignore, what to do first, and when to switch between tasks. It helps with focusing despite having distractions inside and outside their heads. Switching, again, between activities, but not just switching, but switching smoothly. Stopping yourself from doing impulsive things. Planning and organizing your own mental energy. Ignoring noise in the classroom to listen to the teacher. Stopping one activity to start another one when it's time. Remember to raise your hand before shouting out the answer. Hitting a sibling before thinking of ways to solve the problem you're having with them. choosing to do homework before playing video games. When the brain manager gets overwhelmed, which happens easily in these busy, unpredictable places, everything else falls apart. For me, this shows up when I'm trying to get places. Even though I've driven the same route many times, my brain couldn't seem to hold on to the sequence of turns and landmarks. Each time felt brand new because my working memory was not storing that information. Now, another part to consider is what I call your inner voice, your inner ear. And this part of your brain deals with sounds, what you hear and what you say to yourself inside your own head. So your inner ear, it briefly holds things you hear, and your inner voice repeats information to keep it in mind. So maybe repeating a phone number to yourself until you can dial it, following a spoken direction from a teacher, remembering someone's name when you meet them, keeping track of what you need to do in order to clean your room. This is exactly where my name memory problem lives. When someone says their name to me, my inner ear should have captured that sound and my inner voice should have repeated it so I can remember it. But there is a breakdown in that system, and the name seems to just disappear before I can even start repeating it to myself. A quick story. A few years ago, I was getting a few things from Whole Foods. A woman walked up to me and said, "Hi," and I had no idea who it was. I did not remember her face. I did not remember her name. I paused and I must have looked really confused. Then she looked upset and said, "You don't remember me, do you? You don't remember my name." And I apologized. I said, "I am so sorry, but I don't. How do we know each other?" And she didn't answer. She turned around and walked away. Kids who struggle with inner voice, inner ear might miss, again, what the teacher says, forget names right away, forget dates. This can really impact academics. You can see issues pop up with reading and spelling. The next part, your mental whiteboard. This is where your brain handles all the visual stuff and figuring out where things are in space. So it helps you picture things in your mind, getting around places, obviously an issue for me, understanding charts, diagrams, maps, remembering where you put things, following written instructions and visual instructions even. Figuring out math visually, that can be hard. I know geometry was extremely difficult for me. This might come up in real life where you don't remember where you parked your car. Forgetting to do work on another part of the worksheet. Forgetting to turn the paper over and do problems on the back. Losing things like keys, your water bottle, pencils, books, phone, earbuds, which I found my first pair after months in the pocket of a raincoat just this morning. You name it, I've lost it. You may be nodding your head that you experience the same thing, or that your child does, or your student does, or your client does. So much work is online. Even navigating these online classroom platforms can be really overwhelming. Back to my driving problems. They live here in the whiteboard. Even though I can see the route while I'm driving, my mental whiteboard wasn't making a map that I could use later. It's like my brain was taking in all the visual information, but could not save it in a useful way. I think I mentioned this before on an old podcast, but when I moved to Knoxville, Tennessee after graduate school, my dear friend Julie, shout out to Julie if she's listening right now, she drew me maps. She drew me a map. It started from my apartment and took me all the way to work. It had roads drawn, plus the name of the roads. She even put little stop signs and arrows about which way I could go. And good thing I live pretty close. She also drew me a map to the grocery store, the hospital, the dry cleaner, and I would keep those in my car. And they were so incredibly helpful. I had a most lovely parent tell me not long ago that she actually makes a map for her child at the beginning of the school year so they feel less anxious because they just always feel like they're going to get lost. Now let's move on to your brain's storyteller. This part of working memory puts information together, what you hear and what you already know. It brings it together into stories that make sense. Connecting new information, again, to things you already know, things you've already experienced. Imagine what happens next, even though you haven't seen it or read it yet. Understanding the big picture of a complicated situation. Here are just some examples. Following a movie plot or the plot of a book, understanding how today's math lesson connects to yesterday's lesson, because math does build. About an assignment that has you reading the assignment and then guessing what a particular character is thinking or what they might do next. My birthday memory struggles probably involve this too. I can't seem to connect the date with the person. So the date information with the person information in a way that sticks and that I can remember. I want to speak about how this creates so many issues for our kids because lower working memory is more likely to occur in autistic and ADHD kids. It can even create issues socially for them, losing track of what people are talking about, especially in groups. That's really difficult. Interrupting because you're afraid you're going to forget what you want to say to somebody. Missing body language while trying to process what's being said in the moment, having trouble following these back and forth conversations, forgetting to text people back, forgetting to email people back, forgetting people's names and details about friends. And trust me, this hits hard because I really care about people and I know the kids that I see do too. There's a lot of information to keep track of here. It may even limit activities socially. For example, in college, it seemed that students like to get together and play card games. I'd noticed this. The few times I was asked to play, I just said, no thanks, I'd rather watch. That really wasn't it. I did want to play, but I knew it was hard for me. Cards have always been hard for me. I couldn't seem to remember the specific rules for all the different games, especially if they were complicated. And I couldn't remember the value of the cards and when cards had already been played, counting, tracking, coming up with strategy. I didn't want people to know that it was hard for me because I was embarrassed. I didn't want them to think less of me or think I wasn't smart. Now imagine being a kid and having this happen over and over again with classmates, teachers, potential friends. People will think you don't care enough to remember when your brain really just can't hold on to that information the way most people can. If that woman who came up to me those years ago in Whole Foods is listening, please know that I do care so very much for people and their feelings and their thoughts and their experiences. It has nothing to do with remembering your name because I wish I could. I do want to go over some other examples again about how working memory impacts kids at home and school. Losing their train of thought while they're writing, forgetting math steps halfway through the problems, missing important information during class, struggling to understand longer reading passages, getting confused with multi-step assignments, starting something but forgetting what they're doing, getting overwhelmed when switching between activities, like switching between web pages or going from a book to a study guide and having to keep that information in mind. Forgetting steps in everyday routines, like you're getting ready for school, always running late because you lose track of time, losing your stuff, staying organized. All these things are so hard and they pile up, and kids are maxed out. When kids struggle with these very real brain differences, they hear you weren't listening. You should remember this by now. How many times do I have to tell you? You're just not trying hard enough. You need to pay attention. Why can't you focus? What is wrong with you? That's what they hear. The way kids are treated because they have lower working memory hurts their mental health. And you may hear them say, I'm stupid. I never remember anything. I hate myself. And this creates lots of issues. One of them I call the worry cycle, because when kids keep experiencing failure and confusion, they start getting anxious about school and social situations. It contributes to the self-loathing and feelings of hopelessness. Consider the shame spiral, where they do start believing that they're broken, they're lazy, they're stupid. They think that their struggles are these personal failures instead of a brain difference that's not being adequately supported. You may see them pull away socially because conversations are hard to follow, and trying to remember these social rules, like don't interrupt. They may just avoid these social interactions because it's so stressful, because they know they're just going to say something wrong or do something wrong, and then they're going to be embarrassed or be teased, maybe even be bullied. It may look like they're giving up. After you try over and over again and you're still struggling, no wonder they want to stop trying. You might see that they stop asking for help. They stop attempting new things. They start seeing themselves as incapable. You may see emotional meltdowns because this constant mental overload makes it so much harder for kids to manage their emotions. They're already at maximum capacity. Family and school stress can get really big. Parents get frustrated when they don't understand why their child keeps forgetting or not listening, and this creates tension in the home. Educators get frustrated too because they have certain expectations that aren't being met. And that stress, it makes working memory worse. Because when a child is anxious, overwhelmed, or frustrated, their brain focuses on emotional survival, physical survival, instead of thinking and memory. The stress response literally steals mental resources that would normally be available for memory, attention, and learning. This means that high pressure situations like tests, social conflicts, or unexpected changes are exactly when working memory is most likely to fail. It's not that kids aren't trying, their brains are doing exactly what they're designed to do when they're stressed. And that is why we have to help kids feel safe at home and at school. Now, let's talk about what can make a difference for our kids. Now, while we can't fix working memory, We can absolutely create environments and help with strategies and support. First, mental health, of course, I'm a psychologist. That's what I want to talk about first, is mental health and self-advocacy. Number one, validate their experience. I cannot say this enough. Validate their experience. Believe them when they say something's hard. Believe them. Don't dismiss them. Don't dismiss how they feel or what they say. Teach kids about their brains and use simple language and visual ways of describing it. And I cannot explain to you how I wish someone had helped me as a kid. Instead of thinking I'm careless and don't care about people, I would have understood that I just needed different support. Number three, emphasize their strengths. Help kids figure out what they're good at. There's so many wonderful strengths that they have. Maybe it's pattern recognition. Maybe it's intense focus on their interests. Build resilience through success. It's important to create opportunities for these kids to be successful, and it should be in their strengths. These beautiful strengths that they have, instead of hearing all the things that they don't do well at. It's important to foster connection and belonging, help them find their people, others who understand this experience, because it feels really lonely when you think you're the only one dealing with it. We need to support and develop self-advocacy. Helping kids recognize their skills and what can be harder for them. Role play with them on how to ask for the accommodations. Role play with them on how to ask for clarification. I need to write that down to remember it. Can you repeat that first part? I work better when I have a checklist. Can I have a minute to process this? I need to take a break because my brain feels full. Can you write that up on the board so I can see it? Can you show me how to do it? How about, I really have a hard time remembering names. Can you remind me? If you are open about what you need, that's a beautiful thing. Let's hope the other person is accepting on the other side. But you can be proud that you showed up and asked. I just recently went to go visit someone at the hospital, and I felt anxious even before I got there because I knew I would get lost. So I walked up to the registration desk. I took out my phone in the notes section, and I was very clear about the information I needed. And the very nice man that was sitting at the desk was so helpful. Please tell me step by step how to get there. And he did. And he was incredibly patient. I wrote down step by step. Everything was clear and understandable. My anxiety went down because I knew I was going to be able to get there. By him giving me those clear directions, and they were written in front of me so I could refer to them the entire time I was walking and finding my way. Another thing to think about is addressing this anxiety. It's important that kids have access to a mental health provider who understands neurodivergence, who understands differences in learning. There's so many things that can happen for our kids, thinking that they're stupid, no one likes them, their parents are always mad at them. Even if that's not true, they sometimes feel that way. The teacher doesn't like me, she thinks I'm bothering her. Again, that may not be the case, but that doesn't mean that's not what the child is experiencing. I want to go over some strategies that can be helpful for home and school. Number one, break everything down into small pieces. It takes less time to break things down than it does to get through a meltdown. Instead of going, go clean your bedroom, which, oh my goodness, still brings me to a panic. What would you like to do first? Pick up the clothes and put them in the hamper, or work on putting your Legos in the bin? Use timers, create natural stopping points, celebrate the completion of part of a task. What's really cool about breaking down things is you get to see the parts that child does really well and the parts where they need more support. Number 2, get information out of their head and into the world. That's those visual schedules for daily routines. They know what's coming, checklists for multi-steps tasks, sticky notes or reminders, family calendars that everyone can see, whiteboards. I have whiteboards everywhere in my office. The goal is to take information and put it somewhere in the environment where it can be checked as needed. In my own life, if it's not written down, it did not happen. Create predictable routines because routines reduce mental load. Kids don't have to hold the sequence in working memory. It becomes more automatic. Using visual supports in the same language every time to strengthen those routines. I realize that routines can't always be the same. I get it. But there's a lot we can do around routines. Another strategy, I call it the tell me back strategy. So if you give an instruction, ask the child to say it back to you in words that work for them. You can immediately see if there is a miscommunication or misunderstanding. Now, you need to make it safe. And I always say this in session too. Would you like me to repeat that for you? Instead of, you should have been listening. So if I say, please tell that back to me, and they tell me they don't remember, they can feel safe doing that. They know that I'm not going to give them a hard time. I'll say, thanks for letting me know. Sometimes I forget things too. I'm glad to help you, and I'll go ahead and repeat it. So tell me back helps move information from temporary storage into more kind of this active processing. Also, it's important to give processing time. Some kids do need to think through the instruction before you start talking again, because they may be thinking it through, and then you give another instruction on top of that, and they're still processing what you first said. You can always say, let me know when you're ready, instead of just rushing to say the next step. Connect new things to what they already know. So help kids link new tasks or ideas to familiar experiences. And any time that you can make it more interesting by including their interest, that's a great thing. Another recommendation is to create calm spaces. And that could be organized spaces for homework or important tasks, reducing that visual and auditory distraction. You may want to consider noise canceling headphones. Lately, I've been enjoying what I believe it was dramatic video gaming background music. It's actually really calming. Another thing to do that can be very helpful is giving information in multiple ways. So saying it, writing it, showing it. Those visual aids are game changers, step-by-step handouts that they can refer back to. Help with transitions and changes. And I know so many of you are so good at this already. Giving warnings before transitions, practicing new routines ahead of time, using visual timers, modifying assignments thoughtfully, considering working memory, reducing working memory load while keeping learning goals. Allow the use of calculators or other things that can help them. Breaking down big projects again into smaller pieces, giving templates or sentence starters can be so helpful. I was recommending an accommodation just the other day where one of my clients was telling me that he was so anxious about school starting. And so we figured out specifically what he was feeling anxious about. He was most anxious about English homework, where he had to answer questions from either a passage that he read or a video that he watched. He forgot the questions. And then while he was trying to listen, read, and watch, he was forgetting the information that he was supposed to be paying attention to. We figured out a really good way to do it would be to print out the questions. So he had them in front of him no matter what web page he was on. Use active learning strategies. Again, have students repeat instructions back. Use movement and rhythm to help learning. There's so many cool things you can do. Visual organizers, printing out slides to help with note taking. Create chances to say what they've learned or act it out. And this is a really big one. Focus again on those strengths and interests. I can't say that enough. Celebrate their effort and progress. Even if you have lower working memory, that does not mean that you can't have a life that you love. I love my work. If any of those kids are listening to me right now, you can do what you love. I do not forget what clients tell me in session. I do not, because I'm passionate about it and that's my interest. That's what's just amazing about neurodivergent brains is that all these other things can be so difficult, but when you're connected with something that you are so passionate about, you do remember that. I am so fortunate to get up every day and do the work that I love. And I am so proud of all of my clients that keep moving forward and learning about themselves and figuring out what they need and being able to communicate that with others and their lovely families that are so supportive. Okay, I'm going to start crying. I'm going to move on here. Here are my final thoughts. Working memory differences, we often think of that as just an academic thing. That's just school challenges, but it's not. They affect how kids see themselves, how they relate to others, and how they move through this world. Even if it's with my friend Julie making me a map, I'm going to get there. When we understand what's really happening in their brains, we can move from frustration to compassion, from blame to support, from trying to fix them to creating environments where they can actually thrive. I want every child to know what I wish I had known growing up, that your brain is not broken. It just works differently. When people understand you and you learn to understand yourself and you identify those tools that you need, everything changes. It's not about making kids keep up with what's considered typical. It's about recognizing how their brain works and building systems that work with it, not against it. Every time we provide a good recommendation, a recommendation that fits them, we're not just helping with that specific task. We're sending the message that their needs matter, that they should be supported in the way they need. When we support working memory, we're supporting the whole child, their school success, their friendships, their mental health, their emotional health, and how they feel about themselves. Because they don't need to be fixed. They need to be understood, supported, and celebrated for the unique perspectives and strengths they bring to this world. If you feel like this is important for someone, please pass it on to them. Thanks so much. Take care. That's a wrap on today's episode. If you found this helpful, please consider hitting that like button and subscribe so you don't miss anything. And if you're thinking, oh, I know somebody who would really appreciate this episode, please send it on to them. Also, don't forget, go down to that description below because I have loaded it with free resources and information on my parent workshops and continuing education trainings for therapists. Everything you need to keep learning and growing. Thank you for being here, for caring, and for choosing neurodiversity affirming approaches. I look forward to seeing you next time on Autism ADHD TV. Take care.
All content provided is protected under applicable copyright, patent, trademark, and other proprietary rights. All content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. No content is intended to be a substitute for professional medical or psychological diagnosis, advice, or treatment. Information provided does not create an agreement for service between Holly Blanc Moses, Crossvine Clinical Group, the interviewee, Holly Blanc Moses LLC, and the recipient. Consult your physician regarding the applicability of any opinions or recommendations with respect to your symptoms or medical condition or the symptoms or medical condition of your family member. Children or adults who show signs of dangerous behavior toward themselves and/or others should be placed immediately under the care of a qualified professional.